Hello, everyone. Welcome to an APH Access Camp, Excel Camp. Look at me. I'm tripping over my own words, aren't I? I am so glad to have you here. I am actually going to turn you right over to Jen and Amber. Take it away, guys.
Hey everyone, this is Amber Happ. I've been one of your instructors the past few days. I am a TVI and an O&M from North Carolina.
And I am Jen Stelmach, and I am rejoining you for day 3 as well. And I am a TVI in Florida.
And while we get started, I'm going to share my screen so that we can talk about our topic today. Okay, before we get started, I just want to review our camp rules. So if you would like to unmute, you need to have been called on and have a quiet background. If you have a question, go ahead and raise your digital hand. You have to join with a name. The chat will only be open when we say so. And have your chat settings set to all panelists and attendees. Also, before we get started, I'd like to just take a quick poll. Is everybody okay with the way that the screeners are working for our chats? If we're asking questions and many chats are coming in, is everybody okay with us still talking at the same time? If you're okay with how things have been going, go ahead and put a Y in the chat, or an N if you'd like us to not talk while the chat is going.
All right, so we got some yeses and some no's, so we're probably just going to slow it down a little bit. If we ask you guys a question, we are not going to read over it while they're coming in. We'll kind of give you a kind of recap at the end and say we had 5 yeses, 2 no's, that kind of thing. That way it's not quite as overbearing for everybody when all the words are coming in at the same time.
Great. Okay, so yesterday we talked about searching for and applying to jobs. In the chat, or if you'd like to raise your hand, who was able to look for and find appropriate jobs that you were interested in and that you could apply to?
Noah went ahead and found some.
Noah, would you like to share any of the ones that you found that were interesting? You can unmute if you'd like to, or write it in the chat. Now, while Noah's thinking, did anybody use any keywords to search for jobs? I know when I'm searching for jobs, some of the keywords that I use are either full-time or part-time, the location, the name of the job or the company I'd like to work for. These keywords are all important when searching for jobs.
Brianna used the word dogs when she searched because she's interested in doing something in the animal field. So that was a great idea.
Nice job. Okay, so for today, we'll be talking about interviews. And our vocab words for today are interview, time management, attire, and qualifications. So when you hear these words, we'll make sure to describe what they mean. So what comes next? On day 1 of our career camp, we talked all about resumes. And on day 2, we talked about applications. And today we will be talking about interviews. And an interview is a formal meeting between the applicant, which is you, and the employer. This is the employer's opportunity to assess your qualifications or your skills. and see if you would be good fit for the position. This is also your chance to see if the job would be a good fit for you. So everybody here, where can an interview take place? Go ahead and write in the chat where you think an interview could take place. Or if you've had an interview, go ahead and write where your interview took place at.
Isabel, you're welcome to unmute and share your comment with us.
Can you do your camp extension activities if you're not busy at all?
What is it, honey?
Can you do your at-home camp extension activities when you're not busy?
Yeah, you can do them at any time.
Okay. Because
They're not like homework. We're not forcing you to do them. They're just something extra that you can really learn from. So if you get to it, you get to it. If you don't, it's no big deal.
Okay. Because I didn't do mine yesterday.
That's okay. These are just something that you can refer back to. So when it is time for you to start looking for jobs, that you'll have all of these, and these videos are recorded. So you can refer back to them at a later time if you need to.
Okay.
Good question.
Thanks.
We've got quite a few questions and comments over in our chats. Michael said that an interview might take place in a building. And then Arushi said that maybe in an office. And then Jacob had a question, and we can touch back on that after we talk about where an interview is. Brianna said via Zoom, and that's super popular now, especially once all the COVID shutdowns and stuff have been going on. A lot of stuff's moved to Zoom settings.
Good. So yeah, interviews can take place in person. So that could be in a building, in an office, wherever you're applying to. They can take place via Zoom or video conference call. So that could be on Microsoft Teams, Zoom. There's so many, I can't even name them all. And also over the phone. Sometimes you may have an interview that's strictly just on the phone, and they're calling and asking you all of those questions there. So there's many places that an interview can take place at. And I see that Jacob had that question in the chat, and he said, what is the difference between full-time and part-time? Would full-time be the full average amount of time you have to work, and part-time be half the time you work? So full-time is typically between 35 and 40 hours per week. So that is a full-time amount of work, and part-time would be usually like around 20 hours, but it really varies based on the job. So if you're working part-time as maybe a nurse, you could maybe only work 1 or 2 days a week because your shifts are longer, they're 12 hours. But if you're working part-time, maybe at a grocery store, you could only be working maybe 4 hours a day, but every day. So it kind of just depends on where you work. But full-time is that full around 35 to 40 hours per week of work. I hope that answered your question. Okay, so share, how do you feel about interviews? Go ahead and tell me in the chat, or if you'd like to raise your hand and share some experience that you've had. How do you feel about them? I want to know.
Jacob said, attire is the key to a successful interview, and we are really going to touch on that shortly. And then Connor said he feels nervous about interviews.
I'm with you, Connor. I almost always feel a little nervous and jittery when I have interviews, and that's a common feeling for everybody. People are nervous because it's kind of unexpected. You're not really sure how it's going to go. And it looks like Kennedy Faith said nervous also. Yeah, I think a lot of people are probably a little nervous when they go into interviews, or maybe excited. I don't know. Jen, how do you feel when you go into interviews?
I'm usually pretty nervous. And I like to know like what I'm going to be asked. So that kind of, I will sit there and dwell on like, are they going to ask me about this? Am I going to have to talk about this? Try to like make my own script almost to make sure that I'm talking exactly what they might want.
I'm with you. It's at the end
Brianna.
when you feel relaxed and excited and it's over.
Brianna said, make sure that you look presentable when you're going into an interview. And Connor said, right, even when you feel ready, you're still nervous. Yeah, because you're deciding what, like, this could help decide whether you get or do not get the job. So you really want to try and make a good impression. So that's nerve-wracking.
These are some great comments in the chat. Okay, so now that we have an idea of how everyone's feeling about interviews, let's get into it. So you need to do your research before you have an interview. And one of the main things that you need to research or look up is, what do you know about the company that you're applying to? It's so important that you have maybe done a quick web browser search and find the company's website. And usually on websites, there's an about page or about section. And under that, you can learn about the owners of the company, how long they've been in business for, and what their mission for the company is. It's great to have some of that background knowledge so that you're prepared when the interview comes, that you know what the company stands for, and just a little more about that, the place that you want to work. And also, you need to find out if you're qualified or if you have enough experience for the position that you're interested in. Typically on application, or when you find a job listing and you're filling out that application, they will tell you the minimum qualifications or the minimum amount of experience that you need to work there for. But that doesn't mean that you can't find research still, that you can't kind of look up and see, do you think that you would be qualified for this position? And these are all just quick and easy Google searches that you can do. And also, do you have any specific questions about the position that you applied for? So for instance, did the job posting that you found include the time of day that you would be responsible for working at? Is it part-time? Is it full-time? Are you required to work weekends and holidays? Is there an age requirement to work here? These are all really important questions that you want to think about before you get to that interview so that you have them in your head and that you can get those answered when it's time to go into the interview process. So it's time to dress for success. Interview clothes don't need to be brand new or expensive. And if you don't have interview clothes that you can always borrow them from a friend or family member, or even go to a secondhand or a thrift shop to find interview clothes. And remember, you want the interviewer to remember your skills and your qualifications and not something that you are wearing. So I want to know, raise your hand or write in the chat, what do you think is something professional that you could wear to an interview? There are lots coming in the chat. Nice job, everybody.
All right, a little wrap up of what everybody said in the chat. We've got quite a few answers for suit and tie, maybe dress pants and a shirt and tie, a nice dress, a shirt and a blouse, work pants and a blouse.
Nice. So everyone's thinking the same. So professional clothes, that typically means dress pants or a dress skirt or dress, a plain collared or button-down shirt or blouse, closed-toed shoes. Your clothes also need to be clean and without any holes or extreme wear on them. So if the knees of your pants are kind of thinned out or whatever it may be, the elbows of them, you want to make sure that they don't show any extreme wear and that it's not obvious that they're that they've been used a lot. You also want to have professional clothes that don't have any wrinkles in them. You want them to be either ironed, or what I like to do is if I have clothes that have like some wrinkles in them, I take a hot shower and I hang the clothes in the bathroom, and the steam from the shower will take the wrinkles out usually. So that's kind of my hack because I don't like ironing. But make
I
sure you
make
have
a
clothes.
wet washcloth and throw it in the dryer with the clothes, or just a damp washcloth, not super wet, but that way the steam will help reduce the wrinkles too. I'm not an
Oh,
ironer
that's a good
either.
one. And I think they make wrinkle reducing spray too. So there's lots of ways if you don't know how to iron or you don't want to iron like me,
I don't
to
have
get
an
wrinkle
iron.
free
I don't even
clothes.
know if I have an iron.
Yeah, so there's lots of options to make sure that your clothes are professional, and also you want to make sure that they are matching. And if you can't see if they are matching, or if your clothes aren't labeled, then there are plenty of apps that you can use to see what colors your clothes are, or ask a friend. They would be happy to help you, I'm sure, a friend or a family member.
Isabel had a question or a
Yeah.
comment.
Zoom webinar. Long-hand button.
To also get rid of wrinkles from your clothes, there's dryer sheets you can use as well.
Yeah,
Yes,
and
that
they'll
is
make them
very
smell
true.
good. Good point, Isabel. Thanks for sharing. Also, make sure your clothes aren't revealing. If you go into a professional setting, you want to make sure that they're not revealing and that they fit well. So these are all ways that you can dress professionally, and it doesn't have to be expensive. And you probably have clothes in your closet that you could already wear that are professional. So it's time to put your best foot forward. Let's play a quick appropriate or not appropriate game. So I'm going to give you an outfit, and I want you to write in the chat either N for not appropriate or A for appropriate. So is this outfit professional? Jeans, a t-shirt, and dress shoes. What does everybody think? Good. I see lots of N's for it's not appropriate. What's not appropriate about it? Connor heard a dog.
That was mine. The mailman is here, guys. Sorry.
Good. Kennedy said jeans. Jacob said jeans and a t-shirt. Yeah, you don't want to wear jeans and a t-shirt to an interview. The dress shoes would be appropriate to wear though, but you might want to change the pants and the shirt out. Noah said a t-shirt, really? I know. Good. Brianna said jeans and a t-shirt. So for outfit number 2, tell me again, is it appropriate or not appropriate? Dress pants, a collared shirt, and clean shoes. Good. Lots of chats coming in. I see lots of Y's for appropriate. This is appropriate. Yeah. You can wear dress pants, a collared shirt. And if you don't have dress shoes, clean closed-toed shoes will work just fine too for an interview. Good job, everybody. Okay, outfit number 3. Let's do it again. Clean pants, a blouse, and dress shoes. And if you don't know what a blouse is, it's just like a shirt for women, just like a nice shirt.
Looks like another unanimous yes.
Good. Yeah, that was appropriate. You can wear clean, nice pants, a blouse, and dress shoes. So I'm sure all of you guys have clean pants that you could wear to an interview, a plain shirt or blouse. And if you don't have dress shoes, clean shoes will work. So good job. Outfit number 4, let's do it again. A button-down shirt, dress pants, nice shoes, but your clothes are wrinkled.
Got all no's, and then Noah said N/A. So I'm thinking he probably means the outfit is appropriate, but the wrinkles are not, because he seems very logical when it comes to this stuff. So
Yeah. So yeah, the outfit was great. You could definitely wear a button-down shirt, dress pants, and nice shoes, but you don't want to wear clothes that are wrinkled. So maybe use one of our hacks that we talked about by throwing it in the dryer with a damp washcloth, or putting it somewhere where it's gonna be steamy, like a hot shower in the bathroom, or use an iron if you've got one. And our last outfit, swim trunks, a blouse, and dress shoes. What's everyone thinking? I think that was the easy one. I'm seeing lots of ends. I think only you could wear swim trunks if you were going to be maybe like a lifeguard at a beach. I'm not even sure then. Jen, weren't you a lifeguard?
I was, and we actually still had to go into the fire station to do our interviews, and the captain of the fire department was all in his dress uniform and stuff. So we had to do a formal interview even for lifeguarding.
Okay,
For
so
the
no swim
training
trunks
and
ever.
swim test, we wore our swim stuff because we were obviously running and swimming. But
Yeah. Well, good. I loved how everybody was kind of thinking the same way. Does anyone want to share? Raise your hand and let us know. Do you have an outfit in the back of your mind that you already know would work? I'd like to hear what you're thinking. No one wants to raise their hand. What about Connor? Does Connor want to share?
what about some specific attire questions? Like, girls, do you think that you should wear high heels just because they're fancy, even if you're super uncomfortable in them and having trouble walking? Do you think that would be a good choice? Oh, I got a couple hands up. Brianna, I released your permission to talk, and then Kennedy Faith, I'll get you next.
So even though they're very fancy, it's probably not the best for a formal interview, because they're, you don't want to show that you're uncomfortable. So you want to, and rather than high heels, you would rather have like nicer dress shoes.
Yeah, and they actually make heels, which seems crazy right now because you guys probably haven't found any in your sizes that are really comfortable. So if you can find a couple pairs that you actually like and can walk in, then more power to you. If heels aren't for you, I would stay away from them, because you don't want to go wobbling into your interview or like messing with your feet the whole time. And same goes for guys' dress shoes. Some dress shoes are comfortable and some are miserable. So just make sure you're comfortable with what you're sitting there in, because the more comfortable you are, the more relaxed you're going to be, and the more of a like good face you're going to be able to put on.
And also you're going to look more professional. You're more focused, and instead of focusing on your feet, oh my gosh, this hurts.
Absolutely. All right, let me release Kennedy Face.
Okay, so I think that you should wear whatever's comfortable for you, because like if you're gonna be uncomfortable the whole meeting, you're just gonna be distracted and not like, you're gonna lose your train of thought because it's gonna focus on your shoes.
Absolutely. And then we had Anna Rishma. All right, I've released your permission.
We should wear fancy dresses, some shoes.
Yeah, a nice dress is a great idea.
And pick out comfort ones. What? A nice sweater. Not a heavy one, just a nice sweater.
Yeah, a lot of offices are cold. Bringing a sweater is a really good idea.
That's a great thought. Yeah, I always bring a sweater because I don't want to be chilly or have goosebumps on my arms during interviews.
Nothing too tight. So what someone said in the chat, which is a great thing. While I may wear leggings under long dresses some days for work, I make sure everything's covered, but I also wouldn't want to wear that to an interview because they're really tight and really not quite as professional as you might want to go.
And there were some great comments in the chat too. So everybody, thank you so much for participating. I love everyone's thoughts on what is appropriate and what's not appropriate. So good work. So looking good. Now that you've got your outfit figured out, your outward appearance is also important in an interview. Initially, it's going to be how the hiring manager will remember you. So you need to remember that you need to make sure that you're freshly showered, that you smell nice, that your hair is brushed or combed. If you wear makeup, just make sure it's tasteful and not overdone. And if you wear perfume or cologne, make sure it's not overpowering. Some people have allergies to perfume and or maybe they don't like the scent that you wear. And also, this is probably the most important. Keep your head up and face the interviewer's direction during the conversation. Even if you don't have vision, you want to make sure that your chin is up and that you're facing them. And also smile. You want to make sure that that it's not obvious how nervous you are, that you can still smile through it and that you're having a good time. And it's all about the attitude also. You want to go in and try and hide those jitters and the nervousness, but be confident. You're there for a reason. They chose you to be interviewed, so they definitely liked what they saw on your application and your resume. So confidence is key. And be comfortable. This is going back to what you're wearing. If you have an awesome, very professional outfit, but it's not comfortable whatsoever, don't wear it. Just wear something comfortable that is appropriate. And remember to be polite. You need to remember your manners when you're at an interview. So also be proud, but humble. You want to make sure that they know that you're happy to be there because you've made it this far, and that is a huge, huge, huge accomplishment. So practice, practice, practice. What does everybody think you need to practice before you go to an interview? Go ahead and raise your hand or write it in the chat. What do you need to practice? When I see Sanai said the mask hides the smile, that unfortunately right now that's true.
I still think that you can tell like in someone's eyes when they're smiling versus not, though, for sure. Practice your social skills, practice your speaking up and actually being enunciating. Practice answering common interview questions. Interview and what are you good at questions.
Good. Yeah. So everyone's kind of thinking the same. So you want to, one, practice getting dressed for your interview. If you're not sure how long it will take you to shower, get dressed, and get ready for that interview, you need to practice that. Know how long it will take you to find your interview outfit. Also, practice getting to the interview location. If it's not on Zoom or if it's not on the phone, you need to practice finding out how you can get to that location. And this can be an O&M lesson, maybe with a local agency for the blind or visually impaired, or if your mom's even taking you or a guardian, do a trial run, practice getting there, see how long it will take, because sometimes accidents happen and the roads will be congested. And if it's an important day, sometimes it seems to happen more often. There will be slowdowns. So practice getting there, and not just to the building itself, but maybe a trial run of going to the office of where you're interviewing at. And also practice asking and answering interview questions. Now, Jen, should we ask some practice interview questions?
We sure can.
Okay, I've got one first. So if you'd like to raise your hand or write it in the chat, that is fine. My first question is, name one of your strengths. This is a very common interview question that you'll be asked, and they will ask you to describe a strength that you have.
Y'all are welcome to type, guys, or if you want to raise your hands, I can absolutely unmute you as well. Connor said, does looking good count? I wouldn't name that off in an interview, but depends what you're interviewing for, I guess.
If you're a model.
Making people laugh, being friendly, helping others, reliable, those are all good.
Nice. I know whenever I get asked that, I say I'm a people person. I think that's one of my strengths. I can relate to a lot of different people. So whatever your strength is, you want to kind of think about that question before you go into an interview and think of the things that you're proud of that you can do. Because you may get asked those things.
One question that stumped me really bad one time was, what is one of your weaknesses? And while I knew I had a lot of weaknesses, it was like, what do I want to say in an interview? So that's one to kind of keep in mind too.
Yeah, you probably will get asked that one too. So you kind of have to make sure it's one that you say it correctly and that it's not something that's a negative so much. You need to kind of spin it almost into a positive. Good. Okay, so I have one. I have a friend that was actually asked this in an interview, and when I heard that, I was like, that's such a good question. And they asked them if they could be any animal, what would it be and why? And that's not one that you would think of typically during an interview, but it kind of lets the employer know that you can think on your feet and come up with an answer quickly. So that's my question. If you could be an animal, what would you be and why? That's so nice, an elephant.
Miles said, can't you just say that you don't have a weakness? Being a human being, you have weaknesses. So the employer is looking for you to kind of be honest about what are some areas that you need improvement on. And like as a teacher, every year we have to write up a paper. In my county, we call it an ippy dippy. It's an individual plan for us as a teacher to improve over the next year. So while you're new to this job or new to this skill, there's things that you can learn. And like that was a good one. Connor said he's bad managing his time. So, but that doesn't mean he hasn't learned ways to accommodate for that. He may have to use calendars extra. He may have a planner that he carries around. He may have to set 6 alarms in the morning to make sure he's getting up on time, whatever it is. Just because you're bad at it doesn't mean you can't accommodate for that problem. It just means that you've accepted it and learned how to live with it.
Good. And the reason why that you want to practice these interview questions is because it's good to go in being a little bit prepared, because an interview is an unknown place that you don't always have control over. So if you can have a little bit of control over some of the questions, answers that they may ask you, then you're already one step ahead and you'll feel a little more comfortable the more you practice, just like anything.
Some companies may ask you also what you know about their company. If you're just going in and applying at 10 different places, maybe it's a restaurant and you've never even eaten in the restaurant. A lot of places want to know like how you are rooted in their restaurant, how you're rooted in their community, especially like small town places or local places that are not big chain stores. A lot of the time they like to know how you're rooted to them too. So that's one to keep in mind.
Or what your favorite meal is sometimes.
Yeah, at the restaurant for sure.
Yeah. How you can recommend it to others. Well, good job, guys. I love all the conversation happening. So it's go time, finally. What is the interviewer going to talk to you about? So like we just went through some of those practice questions. So they will be asking you questions, and they could be curveballs. It could be one that you never saw coming. It could be one like an icebreaker just to get to know you, kind of like the animal question. So they will be asking you many questions, and they're going to discuss your resume and the details on it. So that's why it's important to bring that resume with you or have access to it when you're at the interview.
And I often bring 2 to 3 copies too when I go to my interviews, because a lot of the time it's not just a single manager interviewing you, there'll be a small team of people. So it's kind of good to keep in mind that just carry a little folder or something in with you to keep a few extra copies. That way you have enough to share with everybody.
Definitely, good point. And that you could also bring in the interview on that thicker paper like we talked about the other day on the resume paper to leave another impression with the panel of people interviewing you. They'll talk to you about your qualifications for the job. They want to make sure that you have experience and that you will know how to do the job that they're looking for. So they will ask you questions about your past and how your skills will work for that job.
Oh, Miss Leanne had a good point. While you may be a Braille reader, it's probably good for you to bring one Braille copy for yourself so if you're in your interview that you can read it with them, but you probably want to bring print unless they were otherwise specified that they need a Braille copy at the job you're applying for.
Yes, great thought. And also if they know that you have a visual impairment, they may ask you about that and how you can complete the job with accommodations. So they'll ask you all these different questions. And then at the end of the interview, you'll usually be given the chance to ask your own questions that you could have for the job. And this could be anything that they hadn't touched on through your research about the position, or something may have popped in your head during the process.
This would be the time that you can ask about schedules or salary, working conditions, on the job attire, anything along those lines that maybe you didn't know before walking into.
Good. So it is up to you if or when you let your employer know about your visual impairment. So it may not be apparent for the employer that you have a visual impairment. So if you don't use a cane, they may have no clue that you have a visual impairment. So you could be going into the interview just like anybody else, and during the whole hiring process. And if you do let your employer know that you have a visual impairment, you'll be protected against discrimination from that disability under the Americans with Disabilities Act, which is ADA. And there are both positives and negatives to letting your employer know about your vision. So if it isn't apparent, or if you're doing a phone interview and they don't know that you have a visual impairment, what could be a positive or a negative that you let them know that you have a visual impairment? I'd love to hear from everybody. What could be a positive or a negative about letting your employer know about your vision? And if you want to raise your hand and just say what it is instead of typing it, that is okay too.
Miles asked, can I just say I have a vision impairment, but make it sound better than it is? One way, we're going to talk a lot tomorrow, Miles, about accommodations, and that's kind of where it really gets in. Knowing what you need for each job is going to be really important, because you can go in and explain to them why it won't be a problem. I just need this screen reader and this whatever else it is, and I'll be able to do this job perfectly. This is all I'll need. And like the way you explain it to them will be what makes it, like, will ease their mind, because a lot of people have never experienced anyone with a vision impairment, especially working for them probably.
Good. And there are different points in the hiring process that you can let them know about your vision. So if you want to let them know when you apply to the job, that's great. If you don't, that's okay too. Some positives, if you do let them know before the interview takes place, the employer will know up front and won't be caught off guard, and they kind of have time to process it and think about what they would think how you would complete the job. And I see some comments in the chat. So Noah said positive, they would understand and accept my disabilities with grace. Negative, if I were to say work in a job with sharp or dangerous objects, I'd definitely be in trouble. And another negative, the employer could fire me. Well, and under ADA, you can't be fired for having just a visual impairment with, you're protected against discrimination. So that's why it would be a positive to let your employer know that you do have a visual impairment and you're protected under that law. Some other positives after letting them know once you already have the job would be that you're hired without having to negotiate any biases or run the risk of getting excluded from consideration even before the interview because of your disability. And you're able to prove your worth on the job. And then some negatives that there are is the employer, like Jen said, they may have never met anybody with a visual impairment and they could be scared or intimidated and not even know how to work with somebody with a visual impairment. So unfortunately, they could end up ignoring your resume or your application just due to those misconceptions about people with visual impairments.
And talking about what Noah said, if they were to work with a job with sharp objects, this is where it's going to be really important for you as a person to advocate and know yourself and know what skills you have, what jobs are appropriate, and what jobs you could complete safely and functionally. I'm not super strong, so I'm not going to go be a construction worker with concrete. Like, I'm just not physically able to do that personally. Whereas some people can't be on their feet all day. So going to apply for a waitressing position may not be a good job for them because they can't walk as many steps as the waitress does. Like, it's just knowing you and knowing yourself and knowing what jobs are appropriate for you as a person.
Great. And all of those ones that we talked about are actually on the APH Career Connect website, and they go into depth about all of the positives and negatives about when you even disclose your visual impairment. Is it before you apply? Is it before your interview? Is it after you've already been offered the job? Is it once you're already working there? So if you're interested in specifics about that, and that you're not sure about and you want to kind of see what other people are thinking, then APH Career Connect has some great examples of positives and negatives that you can take a peek at. So I want to hear it from everybody. At what point would you let your employer know about your visual impairment? So there's a few options. 1, when I first apply to the job. 2, when I schedule the interview. 3, once I get the job. 4, after I've already started working. Or 5, never. So go ahead and write either 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 what you would do. And remember, there's no right or wrong answer.
I've got 2 2s, 3 1s, and 1 3. Mix of 2 3 depending.
Great. Yeah. So everybody has a different opinion on it. And if it's not apparent that you have a visual impairment, just visually, then you really have to think about when you let your employer know about your visual impairment. So you can let them know at any point during the hiring process. Does anyone want to unmute and share why they chose what they did?
All right, Kennedy Faith, I released your permissions. You can unmute now.
I chose between 2 and 3 because depending on the job, you might want to tell them when you schedule an interview, but depending on the job, you might just want to wait till you get the job, actually, because it just depends on the type of job.
Thanks for sharing. That's a good
Yes.
point. And it depends how the interview process is. Is it in person? Is it over the phone? Or is it virtual?
Jacob said 1 or 3. So either when he first applies or when he gets the job.
Nice. Thanks for sharing, everybody. So after the interview, you need to remember to be patient. They're most likely interviewing several different people for the same position. So they have to arrange time with all of those other people to schedule the interview and go through that process. And not until they've interviewed everybody will they make that decision and decide to reach out with people. But what you could do is you could send a follow-up email. I do this every time after I have an interview. And I just send a quick email to the person that interviewed me, something along the lines of, thank you for meeting with me the other day. It was a nice opportunity to learn more about the company and about the job duties. And I look forward to the potential next steps. So sending a follow-up email really looks good on your part that you're dedicated and that you want to be there. And I'm curious, now that we've talked so much about interviews, has anybody done this before? Has anyone sent a follow-up email or checked in after the process? And if you haven't had an interview, would you send a follow-up email? We've got an I always do. Yes. I would. Nice job. Yeah. It's a great look on yourself. It's also a reminder that, hey, I applied to this and I want to be here. A few more I woulds. Nice job, everybody. So for your activity tonight, or sometime this week, make a list of what you would need to be prepared for your interview outfit and for your appearance. So think about those things we talked about today. What is a professional attire, what you could and could not wear, and how to be prepared for your appearance. So making sure that you're freshly showered and that you're clean shaven if you need to do that, or wearing tasteful makeup. So have your interview outfit and appearance all planned out. And if you don't have interview appropriate clothes, brainstorm who could you borrow some from, or where could you purchase them from? And I want you guys to try it out and time yourself. How long will it actually take you to get ready for an interview? Do you think it's going to take 30 minutes, maybe an hour, 2 hours? You don't know until you try it out. I know I tend to take a lot longer when I'm getting ready for interviews, and it kind of just drags on and on. So you want to make sure that you know how much time you need to schedule for that interview process.
Okay, so when it comes to clothes for your interview, do you think you need to go to like a fancy store and buy brand new whole outfits and new shoes and everything? Or do you think that you might be able to find something like at a thrift store or a Goodwill or something like that? So now I said casual. I'm guessing that means a thrift or somewhere like that. I know when I was first getting a job, I had like no money, like none to go spend on new outfits and stuff. So going to thrift stores and stuff, there's nothing wrong with that. There's tons of nice clothes. There's tons of very professional clothes. You just need to check things out before you purchase them, make sure that they fit, that they're not torn, that kind of stuff. There's no stains on them, but there's nothing wrong with going to somewhere a little bit lower price to get your outfits from. Some of my favorite outfits are from Goodwill and other places like that.
I totally agree. And a lot of thrift stores by me, they actually do sales on certain days. So maybe one day a week, maybe clothing might be half off. So check out which stores may have certain deals if you need to be careful about how much money you're spending on your outfit.
Even places like Walmart have decent looking dress pants now. So you could go, if you had a nice shirt, but you really only had jeans for pants, going to and spending $10 on a pair of dress pants from Walmart. No one's going to look at your tags. No one's going to care as long as you look nice and are put together and you feel good in your outfit, then you should be good to go.
And just to review what we need to wear to interviews, let's go ahead and write in the chat what you would not wear to an interview. What would you not wear?
Shorts, good one. Jeans, absolutely. Flip-flops, yep.
And that's hard in Florida too, because you wear flip-flops, or probably Utah too, wherever you're from, if you're wearing flip-flops because it's so hot out. But you gotta make sure you wear closed-toed shoes.
Pants with holes, that's a good one. Right now, not everything that's fashionable currently is interview appropriate. Well, it may look super cute and you really like it. Not everything that is in the current fashion is absolutely okay to wear to an interview. Not wearing casual clothing in general. That's true. I'm definitely not going to roll up in there in workout pants and a t-shirt. Present yourself with confidence. Appearances are your first impression.
I think Isabel has her hand raised.
Here we go. I've given you permission, Isabel. You're welcome to unmute.
Zoom webinar. Lower hand.
Why can't you wear flip-flops to an interview?
Flip-flops are just considered really casual. I live in Florida, so this is really hard for me because I have some really nice, really dressy flip-flops. It's just really making sure that you look super presentable and like you really put time and energy into yourself and your appearance.
Oh.
If you had a pair of like leather, like I have different ones that are like fancy looking. They have beads on them. They're sparkly, something like that. Those kind of almost fall more to the sandal range versus flip-flops. So there's always that borderline. This might count, this might not type thing too.
Yeah.
And I know we didn't touch on this, but I'm just thinking, if you paint your fingernails, you don't want to show up to an interview with chipped fingernail polish. Or fingernail colors and really wacky colors. You want to make sure that they're clean and that for everybody that they're cut and trimmed so that they look presentable. It's first impressions are really important when it comes to interviews, and you want to make a lasting and good first impression.
Did anyone else have any questions? Because I do have a list of a bunch of interview questions pulled up that I thought we could go over a few if nobody else had any questions right this second. Yeah, no really long nails. Just making sure that your nails are a functional length and look clean. That's a big one. Not coming in with like dirt under your nails. All right, so here's our first one. Why should this company hire you? And you guys don't have to make these super long. You'd probably want to make a few sentences about some of these if you were at the interview, but just come up with some good ideas. Like you're organized or you're a hard worker, that kind of stuff. Let's see what you guys think about yourselves. Trustworthy, awesome.
And if you have character counts at your school, think about those pillars of good character. Sometimes those are really great ways to describe yourself.
Come on, guys. Nobody has any good qualities about themselves. I have a feeling every single one of you has a list of good qualities about yourselves. You guys can unmute to tell us too. Just raise your hand and we'll unmute you if you'd like. A good team player. Connor is a good team player, said Miss Robin. Is anybody responsible? That's a good one for an employer. Brianna speaks up well. Is anyone adaptable? That's a good one for a lot of employers. If you can adapt to different situations. Say they throw something crazy at you during the day and you are struggling with it. Maybe you figure out a way to fix the problem really good, really well.
Having good problem solving skills is super important in any job that you'll have, because the unexpected does happen and you need to be quick and think things through and decide what you need to do about that.
Yay, some answers. We got Angelique is self-motivated. Miles deals with stress well. And Sanaya loves being around people and she's adaptable. See, I knew you guys had some skills. Oh, Noah wrote like a nice one. I think that intercompany name here should hire me because I'm a hard worker. I'm also friendly and a great team player. I'm also responsible. I am flexible and adaptable. It is for these reasons that this company should hire me. That was awesome, Noah.
That was really good. I would hire you.
Sometimes companies will throw you a curveball like we kind of talked about earlier, and they may ask you about like a time you made a mistake or a time that there was an issue in the workplace and how you overcame it. So that's something just to kind of keep in mind. Because we all make mistakes. There are issues, whether it's you forgot to turn in this paperwork or you forgot to do this for your work or you overslept through your alarm. Like things happen, but how did you handle it and how did you make up for it to turn the day around and to turn the shift around? That's what they really like to hear. They may ask what your current salary is, why you were fired or why you are leaving your current job.
Or why you want to work there. Why did you apply to that place? And we only have a few minutes left. Does anybody have any questions about what we talked about today or anything throughout the week that we've discussed?
For tomorrow, we are going to dive deep into our accommodations and what accommodations are work appropriate and what are appropriate accommodations for different workplaces and different time periods. So just if you have an IEP that you have access to, if you could bring your accommodations page, or if you just know a list of what accommodations you use on a daily basis, that will be super helpful tomorrow when we're talking about all of the different accommodations that kind of overlap from school to work and which ones don't, which are not appropriate accommodations that are on your IEP for your school that you probably will never use at work because it's just not, you don't need someone to copy notes from the board for you at work. You're probably not keeping notes on the board, that kind of thing. So we're just going to discuss all the different ways accommodations will help you become your own advocate.
I am going to hop in here and say thank you so much, Amber and Jen. We've had another fun-filled day learning about careers.